"We're giving your division to my nephew. You're clearly not capable of running it anymore." Rupert said it like he was ordering lunch. Just stated it, matter of fact, while I stood there in that meeting room with 11 other people watching. His nephew, Colton, sat 2 chairs down from him, leaning back like he already owned the place. 24 years old, had that look people get when they've never been told no in their entire life. I remember the sound of someone shifting in their seat, the way nobody would look at me directly. 8 years I'd spent building this division from absolutely nothing, and he was taking it away in one sentence. "Congratulations to him," I said. I even smiled when I said it. Colton nodded at me like I was being reasonable, like I understood my place. But let me back up. Let me tell you how I got there. My name is Leena. 8 years before that moment, I was brought in to handle a part of the business nobody else wanted to touch. It was broken. The relationships with the people who supplied what we needed were a disaster. Half of them were ready to walk away completely. The other half only stayed because they had contracts they couldn't break yet. Rupert had told me during my first week, "Fix it or we shut it down. You have 6 months." I didn't fix it in 6 months. I rebuilt it from scratch in 2 years. Every single supplier I met with personally, not in fancy places. I went to their warehouses, their family restaurants, sat with them and learned how they actually worked, what they needed, what they'd been asking for that nobody had listened to. There was this man, Prakash, who ran one of our biggest supply operations. First time I met him, he said, "You're the 5th person they've sent in 3 years. Why should I believe you're different?" I told him, "Because I'm not here to manage you. I'm here to make sure we don't waste your time anymore." It took 4 months before he trusted me. But after that, he'd answer when I needed him. Not because of contracts, because he knew I'd never promise something I couldn't deliver. That's how I built all 17 of those partnerships. One conversation at a time, one promise kept at a time. By year 3, our division was making more than any other part of the business. By year 5, we doubled that. By year 8, we were the reason the whole operation could expand into new areas. Rupert never said thank you. Not once. He'd show up twice a year, walk around for an hour, then leave. He didn't know the names of the people who worked under me, didn't know how anything actually functioned. He just saw numbers going up and assumed it happened automatically. But I didn't care about being thanked. I cared about building something that worked, something that mattered. Then 3 months before that meeting, something happened. I was having breakfast at this small place I liked near the industrial area. Quiet, good food. I'd been going there for years. That morning, someone sat down in the booth behind me. I heard him order, heard his voice, and recognized it immediately. Graham. He ran our biggest competitor. We'd never met face to face, but I'd heard him speak at industry events. Knew his reputation. Smart, direct, didn't play games. I almost left, but then he turned around and said, "You're Leena, right? From Rupert's operation?" I nodded. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Not for business, just curious about something. He moved to my booth, ordered more of that spiced tea they made. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "How long do you think you have before he finds a way to push you out?" I must have looked confused because he continued, "Rupert, I've watched him do this for 15 years. Finds someone capable, lets them build something valuable, then hands it to someone in his family or someone who owes him. Happened to 3 people I know personally. You've been there 8 years. Your division is successful. You're about to become inconvenient." "Why would I be inconvenient?" I asked. "Because you know too much. Because people respect you more than they respect him. Because at some point you might realize you have leverage and he can't control that." I didn't believe him at first. Thought maybe he was trying to recruit me or mess with my head. But something about the way he said it stayed with me. We kept talking. Not about work, about how things actually operated in our world. About the people who made everything possible behind all the official business. About how relationships were more valuable than anything else. When we finished, he said, "If I'm wrong about Rupert, I apologize for wasting your time. But if I'm right, and you ever want to talk, here's how to reach me." He wrote down a personal number on a napkin, not a business line, just his direct contact. I kept that napkin. 2 weeks later, Rupert mentioned during a casual conversation that his nephew was finishing school soon. Said Colton was really sharp and ready to lead something significant. That's when I knew Graham had been right. So I reached out, met him for breakfast again. This time, I asked questions. What would happen if certain suppliers decided to work with someone else? How difficult would it be to establish those relationships from scratch? What would it take to make that transition smooth for everyone involved? Graham listened. Then he said, "You're not talking about changing jobs. You're talking about something else." "I'm talking about what happens when the foundation gets pulled out," I said. "When someone who doesn't understand how things work tries to run something built on trust." He leaned forward. "Keep talking." Over the next 3 months, I met with Graham 9 times. We never discussed anything illegal, never talked about stealing information or breaking agreements. We talked about relationships, about the 17 partnerships that made my division function, about how those weren't contracts you could just transfer to someone new. They were built on years of showing up, keeping promises, being someone people could trust. I introduced Graham to 3 of those suppliers. Just casual conversations. "This is someone I respect. Someone who understands how important you are to everything we do." That's all I said. But that was enough. They met him. They talked. They saw what I saw. Someone who actually cared about building things properly. I never told them to leave. Never suggested they break their agreements. I just made sure they knew there was someone else who valued what they did. Someone who would treat them the way they deserved. Then came that morning meeting. 3 months of preparation, and I still felt my stomach twist when Rupert said those words. "We're giving your division to my nephew. You're clearly not capable of running it anymore." Everyone in that room knew it was garbage. They'd watched me build everything, watched the division grow year after year, but nobody said anything. Nobody was going to challenge Rupert. He owned the whole operation. He could do whatever he wanted. Colton sat there looking pleased with himself, like he'd accomplished something. After the meeting ended, people came up to me quietly. "This isn't right. We know what you built here. This is wrong." I thanked them, told them it was fine, told them to support Colton and help him succeed. But I wasn't fine. I was furious, not just at losing what I'd built, at the disrespect, at the lie that I wasn't capable when everyone knew the truth, at watching someone who'd done nothing get handed something they didn't understand and couldn't possibly run. Before I continue further, thank you for listening to this. I know these stories aren't easy to hear, especially when you've been through something similar. If you're listening while working, driving, or just trying to get through your day, I appreciate you being here. Now, back to the story. Rupert pulled me aside after everyone left. "I hope you understand this is just business," he said. "Colton needs experience running something substantial. Your division is perfect for that." "I understand completely," I said. "Good. You'll stay on for 2 weeks to help him transition. Show him how everything operates. Introduce him to your contacts." "Of course." He actually looked relieved, like he'd expected me to fight, and was happy I was being professional. That Friday, Colton gave a speech to everyone in the division. Talked about new energy and innovative approaches. Used a lot of words that didn't mean anything. People clapped because you clap when the boss's nephew speaks. That's how it works. I spent that afternoon clearing out my workspace. 8 years of work, and it fit into 2 boxes. People kept stopping by, asking if I was okay, telling me they'd miss working with me. One woman, Sarita, who'd been with me for 6 years, said quietly, "You'll be fine," I told her. "Just do your job the way you always have." But we both knew that wasn't true, because doing the job the way we always had meant relying on relationships that Colton didn't have and couldn't build in time. I went home that evening and sat in my apartment. Didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there thinking about 8 years of early mornings and late nights. 8 years of building trust, one conversation at a time. 8 years of making sure everything worked smoothly, so people like Rupert could pretend it happened automatically. My phone buzzed. A message from Graham. "How did it go?" I wrote back, "Exactly like you said. He announced it today. His nephew takes over Monday. Are you ready?" I looked at that message for a long time. Was I ready? Ready to watch something I built fall apart? Ready to let 17 partnerships I'd spent years creating move on to someone who'd treat them properly? Ready to show Rupert what happens when you hand something valuable to someone who doesn't understand its value? I wrote back, "Yes." That weekend felt strange. Saturday morning, I woke up and didn't have anywhere I needed to be for the first time in 8 years. No messages to check, no problems to solve, no suppliers calling about delivery schedules or payment terms. I made breakfast slowly, sat on my balcony, watched people going about their normal lives. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Prakash. "I wanted to call before anything official happens," he said. "Just to say working with you these past 7 years meant something. You treated us like partners, not just people filling orders." "It meant something to me too," I said. "This new person, the nephew, you think he understands how things work?" "No," I said honestly. "But that's not my problem anymore." There was a pause. Then Prakash said, "What if it became someone else's opportunity instead?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been talking to some people. People who understand how to build relationships properly. People who remind me of you." "Graham," I said. "Yes. We met a few weeks ago. You introduced us. He's different from most people in this business. Reminds me of why I got into this work in the first place. He's good people," I said. "So, I've been thinking. My contract with your old place ends Monday morning, technically. There's a renewal clause, but it requires both parties to agree. What if I just don't agree?" "That's your choice to make," I said carefully. "It is, and I'm making it. Just wanted you to know." After he hung up, 3 more suppliers called that day. Similar conversations, thanking me, mentioning they'd met Graham, asking careful questions about what I thought they should do. I didn't tell them to leave. I didn't have to. They'd already decided. They just wanted me to know they remembered who'd actually valued their work all these years. Sunday evening, Graham called. "Tomorrow's going to be intense. You sure you want to watch this happen?" "I built it," I said. "I should see what happens when someone breaks it." "Fair enough. Just remember, once this starts, there's no stopping it. Those relationships are going to walk. The division is going to struggle. People who work there, people you hired and trained, they're going to suffer too." I'd thought about that. Thought about Sarita and the others who'd trusted me, who'd worked hard and didn't deserve to get caught in this. "I know," I said, "but Rupert made his choice. He decided someone who'd never built anything deserved to run something that took years to create. Now he gets to learn what that actually costs." Monday morning, I didn't go anywhere near the office. Stayed home, made tea, tried to read, couldn't focus on the words. Around 10, my old work phone started buzzing. I'd kept it over the weekend in case anyone needed something. Message after message from numbers I recognized. Colton's assistant, the operations manager, even Rupert's direct line. I turned it off. Around 11, Graham sent a message. "It's happening. 4 suppliers confirmed they're out this morning. 3 more this afternoon. The nephew is panicking." I imagined Colton in that office, probably surrounded by people trying to explain why everything was falling apart on his first real day, probably blaming them, probably calling his uncle. By evening, Graham sent another update. 7 total so far. He's trying to call the suppliers directly. They're not picking up. Word is Rupert got involved around 3. Started making threats about contracts and legal action. "Will that work?" I asked. "Against people who technically fulfilled their agreements and chose not to renew? No. It's just noise. Desperation." Tuesday morning, I finally turned my old work phone back on. 43 messages. I didn't read most of them, but I read the one from Rupert. "We need to talk. This situation with our suppliers is critical. I know you have relationships with these people. I need you to help fix this." I wrote back, "I don't work there anymore. You made that clear Friday." His response came immediately. "This isn't about ego. This is about the business. About the people who still work here. Be professional. Be professional." That's what he said. After humiliating me in front of everyone, after lying about my capabilities, after handing everything I built to someone who couldn't run it, I didn't respond. Around noon, Sarita called. Her voice sounded tired. "It's chaos here. Nobody knows what to do. We have orders we can't fill. Colton keeps having meetings, but nothing changes. He asked me this morning how to contact Prakash. I told him I didn't have that information." "You did the right thing," I said. "Did I? Because people are worried about their jobs now. If this division fails, what happens to us?" That hit hard, because she was right. I'd wanted Rupert and Colton to face consequences, but the people who'd worked with me, who'd trusted me, they'd face consequences too. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't want this to hurt you. I know, but it is hurting us, and I need you to know that." After she hung up, I sat there feeling sick. Graham had warned me. People I cared about were going to get caught in this. I'd known that. But knowing it and feeling it are different things. Wednesday morning brought more messages. Colton, this time. Please. I know you're upset about how things went. I get it. But I need help. These suppliers won't talk to me. They won't even answer when I call. You built these relationships. You must know how to fix this. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me, a small part, felt something like sympathy. He was 24. He didn't ask for this. His uncle put him in a position he wasn't ready for, and now he was drowning. But then I remembered him sitting there grinning while Rupert said I wasn't capable. Remembered him nodding like I was being reasonable when I congratulated him. He'd accepted something he didn't earn, and now he had to live with what that meant. I didn't respond. That afternoon, Graham called. It's officially a disaster. 9 suppliers have pulled out completely. 2 more are talking about it. The division can't operate. They're going to have to breach contracts with their buyers because they can't deliver. You know what that means. Legal problems, financial penalties, reputation damage. Exactly. And it all traces back to one decision: giving something complex to someone inexperienced. How's Rupert handling it? Badly. He gave a statement this morning, blaming supplier greed. Said they're taking advantage of a transition period, trying to paint himself as the victim. Will anyone believe that? The people who matter? No. They know how this business works. They know relationships don't disappear overnight unless something broke them, and everyone knows what broke them. Thursday, I finally went outside, took a long walk through the city, tried to clear my head, tried to figure out how I felt about what was happening. I'd wanted Rupert to face consequences. I'd wanted him to understand that you can't just hand something valuable to someone unqualified and expect it to work. I'd wanted Colton to realize that respect isn't inherited, but I hadn't fully considered the cost. The people who'd worked with me were suffering. The buyers who depended on us were suffering. Even some of the suppliers who'd built their operations around our partnership were having to scramble to redirect their resources. Graham had been right. Once it started, there was no stopping it. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after Colton took over, Rupert called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. You did this, he said. No greeting, no pretense. You poisoned those relationships before you left. You sabotaged my nephew. I didn't do anything, I said calmly. I introduced people to each other. That's all. What they chose to do after that was their decision. Don't play games with me. Those suppliers trusted you. You used that trust to destroy what we built. What we built? I said. You didn't build anything. You showed up twice a year and took credit for work you didn't do. I built those relationships. Me. Over 8 years of actually showing up and keeping my word. Those people trusted me because I earned it. Something your nephew will never understand. He's young. He's learning. You could help him instead of watching him fail. Like, you helped me when you announced I was incapable in front of everyone. When you lied about my abilities to justify giving my work to someone in your family. Silence on the other end. Those people didn't leave because I sabotaged anything, I continued. They left because they knew what was coming. They knew someone who didn't understand or value their work was taking over. They knew they'd be treated like replaceable parts instead of partners. So they made a choice, just like you made a choice last Friday. This isn't over, Rupert said. You're right, I said. It's not. Because now you have to explain to your buyers why you can't fulfill your obligations. You have to explain to your investors why a profitable division is suddenly failing. You have to explain to everyone who trusted you why you thought your nephew could run something he'd never learned to build. And you can't blame me for any of that. You can only blame yourself. I hung up, sat there shaking, not from fear, from finally saying what I'd wanted to say for 8 years. Every time he'd taken credit for my work, every time he'd dismissed what actually made things function, every time he'd acted like success happened automatically. That evening, Graham sent a final message. It's done. Colton is being moved to a different role. Rupert announced it an hour ago. Called it a strategic reassignment. The division is being restructured, which means they're trying to figure out how to salvage what's left. Learn. How long did he last? I asked. 19 days. 19 days. That's how long it took for 8 years of work to fall apart when someone who didn't understand it tried to run it. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated, and part of me did. But mostly, I felt tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of watching people who'd never built anything think they deserved to lead. Tired of a system that valued connections over competence. Saturday morning, 1 week and 1 day after everything started falling apart, Sarita called again. "They want to hire you back," she said. "Rupert is offering to reinstate you. Same position, probably more money. He's desperate." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I'd pass along the message. I didn't tell him what I actually think, which is that you should never work for someone who disrespected you like that." "Thank you," I said. "So what are you going to do?" I looked out my window, watched the morning lights spread over the buildings, thought about 8 years of work that disappeared in 19 days, thought about Rupert's voice saying I wasn't capable, thought about Colton's grin. "I'm going to let them figure it out themselves," I said. "You won't even consider it?" Sarita asked. "No, because if I go back, nothing changes. Rupert learns he can disrespect people as long as he apologizes when it's convenient. And the next person he decides isn't useful anymore gets treated the same way I did. So, what will you do now?" That was the question, wasn't it? I'd spent 3 months planning how to pull everything apart. I'd spent 19 days watching it happen. But I hadn't spent much time thinking about what came after. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but it won't be there." Over the next few weeks, I started getting calls from other people in the business. People who'd heard what happened. Some offered sympathy. Others offered jobs. One woman who ran a mid-sized operation said, "What you did took guts. Most people would have just quit and complained. You actually did something about it." "I didn't do anything illegal," I said. "I know. That's what makes it brilliant. You just let the truth show itself, that someone who doesn't understand relationships can't maintain them, that respect matters more than authority, that you can't transfer trust like you transfer a title." Those conversations helped, reminded me that what I'd done wasn't petty. It was necessary, because people like Rupert needed to understand there were consequences for treating people like they were disposable. About a month after everything fell apart, I met Graham for breakfast again. Same place where this all started. So, he said, "What now?" "I've been thinking about that," I said. "I could work for someone else, build another division for another person who'd probably take credit for it eventually. Or I could do something different, something where the relationships I build stay mine." Graham smiled. "You're thinking of starting your own operation. Maybe. Small at first, working directly with suppliers and buyers, without all the layers in between. Being honest about what I can deliver and when. Building something based on trust instead of contracts. That's harder than working for someone else," Graham said. "You'll be responsible for everything, the successes and the failures." "I know, but at least nobody can take it away and give it to their nephew." He laughed at that. "Fair point. And for what it's worth, I think you'd be good at it. The suppliers I've started working with, they ask about you constantly, where you ended up, if you're okay. They respect you more than they ever respected Rupert." "How are they doing?" I asked. "With the transition? Better than expected. They appreciate being valued, being treated like their work matters, which is exactly what you showed them for 8 years. That felt good to hear, because I'd worried that pulling those relationships away had hurt them too. But Graham was right. They were doing fine, better, even, because they were working with someone who understood what they brought to the table. 2 months after I left, I ran into someone from my old division at a shop in the market area. His name was Kieran. He'd worked under me for 5 years. "How are things?" I asked. He shook his head. "Honestly, bad. They brought in someone new to run the division after Colton got moved, but half the staff left. The culture is completely different. Everyone's just trying not to get blamed for problems they didn't create. And you?" "I'm looking for something else. Most of us are. Nobody trusts Rupert anymore. He showed us what he thinks of loyalty." "I'm sorry," I said. "You got caught up in something that wasn't your fault." "It wasn't yours either," Kieran said. "You didn't humiliate yourself in front of everyone. You didn't give away something valuable to someone unqualified. You didn't create this mess. Rupert did. We all know that." After he left, I thought about what he'd said, about loyalty, about trust, about how once you break those things, you can't just fix them by throwing money at the problem or making speeches about professionalism. Rupert had thought he could treat people however he wanted because he had power. He'd thought relationships were just business arrangements that could be transferred from one person to another. He'd thought competence didn't matter as long as you had authority. He was wrong. And now he was living with the consequences. 3 months after everything happened, I officially started my own small operation. Nothing fancy, just me and a few connections, working directly with suppliers and buyers who wanted someone they could trust. Someone who'd show up when things went wrong. Someone who kept their word. I called Prakash to let him know. Finally, he said. I wondered when you'd stop waiting and start building again. I wasn't waiting. I was thinking. About what? About whether I wanted to stay in this business at all, after everything that happened. And I realized I don't want to let what Rupert did change who I am. I'm good at building relationships. I'm good at making things work. Why should I give that up because one person treated me badly? You shouldn't, Prakash said. And for what it's worth, I'd be interested in working with you again. On your terms this time. That conversation led to others. 5 of the suppliers I'd worked with for years reached out. Not all of them could switch their partnerships immediately. Some had agreements they needed to honor first. But they made it clear they'd rather work with me directly than through someone like Rupert. Building something from nothing is different the second time. The first time, I'd been trying to prove myself, trying to show I could fix something broken. This time, I was building on a foundation I already had. Relationships that had survived everything. Trust that didn't disappear just because my title changed. It was slower than before, harder in some ways. I didn't have the resources of a large operation behind me, but it was mine. Every success, every failure, every decision, all mine. 6 months after leaving, I heard through someone that Rupert's business had shrunk significantly. The division I'd built never recovered. Too many broken relationships, too many burned bridges, too much damage to their reputation. Some people might have felt satisfied hearing that, vindicated. Like it proved I'd been right all along, but I didn't feel that way. I felt sad that it had to happen. Sad that all those years of building something good ended because one person thought authority mattered more than respect. One afternoon, I got an unexpected call. It was Colton. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, he said. His voice sounded different, quieter, less certain. What do you want? I asked. To apologize. I didn't understand what I was taking from you. I didn't understand what you'd built or what it meant. I just thought my uncle was giving me an opportunity. He was giving you something I built, I said. There's a difference. I know that now. I lasted 19 days before everything fell apart. 19 days of people asking me questions I couldn't answer. 19 days of watching relationships I didn't build disappear. 19 days of realizing I had no idea what I was doing. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know I understand now. What you did, building those relationships, earning that trust, that took years. Real work, real skill. And my uncle and I, we treated it like it was nothing, like it was just transferable. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Colton continued. I'm just saying I understand now why what happened, and I don't blame you for it. After he hung up, I sat there processing that conversation. He'd apologized, admitted he was wrong, acknowledged what I'd built. It didn't change anything, didn't undo the humiliation or the disrespect, but it meant he'd learned something. That maybe next time he got an opportunity, he'd understand the difference between being given something and earning something. A year after everything happened, my operation was stable, small but growing. I worked with 8 suppliers regularly, had relationships with 15 different buyers, made enough to live comfortably and pay the 2 people I'd hired to help. One of those people was Sarita. She'd left Rupert's operation 6 months after I did, called me asking if I needed help. We met for tea and I told her honestly, I couldn't pay what she'd been making before. I couldn't offer the same stability as a large operation. But if she wanted to help build something different, something based on trust and respect, I had room for her. She'd said yes immediately. The other person was someone I'd never worked with before, a young woman named Ishani who'd just finished studying and was looking for her first real job. She reminded me of myself 8 years earlier, eager, hardworking, wanting to prove herself. I told her on her first day, I'm going to teach you everything I know, not because I'm generous, because I want you to understand how things actually work, how relationships are built, how trust is earned. And when you've learned enough, if you decide to go somewhere else or start your own thing, I won't stand in your way, because that's how it should work. She looked surprised. Most people would worry I'd leave and compete with them. Maybe, but I'd rather train someone properly and have them succeed somewhere else than keep them limited just to protect myself. That's what happened to me. Someone treated me like I was disposable because they were afraid of what I knew. I won't do that to anyone else. And Graham stopped by one afternoon to see how things were going. We sat in my small workspace, nothing fancy, just a room I rented in a shared building, and talked about how different the business landscape looked from this angle. Rupert's operation is struggling to find people now, Graham said. Word got around about how he treated you, how he handed your division to his nephew. People don't want to work for someone who values family connections over competence. Good, I said. Maybe he'll learn something. I doubt it. People like that rarely do. They just blame everyone else and move on. Then that's his problem, not mine anymore. The truth was, I'd stopped thinking about Rupert months ago, stopped checking to see how his business was doing, stopped caring whether he'd learned anything from what happened. I'd moved on, built something new, something that belonged to me, and that was the real victory. Not watching him fail, not proving I'd been right, just moving forward and creating something better. Thank you for listening to my story all the way through. If this resonated with you, if you've been through something similar, or if you just appreciated hearing about someone standing up for themselves, I'd really value if you could leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. And if you think someone else needs to hear this, someone who's been undervalued or disrespected at their work, share it with them. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these experiences makes all the difference. Thank you again for being here.